Today, we're unraveling the story of an invention that revolutionized our world, transforming modern life with unmatched convenience, but also sparking one of the greatest environmental and health crises we've ever faced. This invention is everywhere, in your clothes, your food, even inside your body. So, here's the big question. Can we truly live without it now? What if I told you that something as tiny as a grain of sand could infiltrate your body, damage your cells, and even alter your DNA? What if these invisible invaders are in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat? And here's the kicker. We're the ones who created them. This material, once created, almost never dies or decomposes. It has the potential to damage our endocrine system, DNA, and can cause cancer. Intrigued? Concerned? You should be. Did you know that tearing a plastic bag can release between 0.46 and 250 microplastics per centimeter of torn plastic? Yeah, that's a huge range, and it all depends on how the plastic is torn. When plastic bags tear, whether it's by hand or using scissors, they break into these tiny particles. These microplastics are small enough to be carried by the wind, end up in the water, or even get inhaled. And the real problem is, they don't break down easily. They can last for hundreds of years, affecting our environment and wildlife in harmful ways. How does tearing a simple plastic bag cause such a problem? Well, the way the bag is torn plays a big role in how many microplastics are released. Welcome back to Club Academia, where curiosity meets knowledge. Today, we're diving into a mind-blowing and crucial topic: micro and nanoplastics. What exactly are they? How did they end up everywhere, including inside us? And most importantly, what can we do about it? We will also unpacking the fascinating story of plastic. How was it discovered? Why did it become so popular? And why is it getting such a bad reputation now? Plus, we'll explore the explosive growth of plastic, its health effects, and what the future holds. Stick around. This journey is going to change how you see the world. By the end of this video, you'll be more knowledgeable and definitely a little wiser than when we got started. The story of plastic begins in the 19th century. In 1869, John Wesley Hyatt invented the first man-made plastic, cellulose nitrate, as a substitute for ivory. But the real breakthrough came in 1907 when Leo Baekeland developed Bakelite, the first fully synthetic plastic. Bakelite's durability and versatility made it a sensation. It was called the material of 1,000 uses. This small invention was the start of something big. From electrical insulation to jewelry, Bakelite changed everything. It marked the dawn of the plastic age. In the decades that followed, new plastics like nylon, polyethylene, and PVC were invented. These materials were cheap, lightweight, and incredibly versatile. During World War II, plastics became essential for military equipment. After the war, they flooded the consumer market, transforming everything from packaging to fashion. Imagine a world without plastic. No phones, no computers, no affordable packaging for food. It's hard, right? That's why plastic became so ubiquitous. By the 1950s, it was being produced on an industrial scale. The numbers are staggering. In 1950, the world produced 2 million tons of plastic annually. Today, that number has skyrocketed to over 400 million tons per year. That's enough plastic to circle the Earth multiple times. This exponential growth was driven by convenience. But with great power comes great responsibility. And this is where the story of plastic takes a darker turn. So, what went wrong? Plastics are made to last, but that's also their biggest problem. Most plastics don't biodegrade. Instead, they break down into smaller pieces, called microplastics, which persist in the environment for centuries. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic end up in our oceans. It's harming wildlife, entering our food chain, and even showing up in our drinking water. And it's not just an environmental issue, it's a health crisis too. Fast forward to today, and we face the growing concern of micro and nanoplastics. Microplastics are tiny plastic fragments, less than 5 millimeters in size. They can be intentionally made, like microbeads in exfoliating products, or they're the result of larger plastic items breaking down. Nanoplastics are even smaller, typically less than 1 micrometer. These are often invisible to the naked eye, but can still wreak havoc on the environment and human health. Over time, sunlight, wind, and water break larger plastics into micro and nanoplastics. These particles are now found everywhere, in oceans, soil, and even the air we breathe. How do micro and nanoplastics enter the human body? Micro and nanoplastics can enter our bodies in several ways. 1. Through food, studies have found plastics in fish, shellfish, salt, and even bottled water. 2. Through air, tiny particles can be inhaled from the air. 3. Through skin, while less common, certain cosmetics and textiles may allow skin exposure. Research shows that the average person ingests about 5 grams of plastic each week. That's roughly the weight of a credit card. Effects on the human body and DNA. Now, let's talk about what happens when these particles make their way into our bodies. 1. Cell damage. Studies indicate that nanoplastics can penetrate cell membranes, leading to inflammation and oxidative stress. 2. DNA damage. Certain plastics release chemicals, like bisphenol A, BPA, and phthalates, which can interfere with cellular processes and damage DNA. Endocrine disruption. Plastics can mimic hormones, disrupting the endocrine system and potentially leading to issues like infertility or cancer. The endocrine system is a network of glands and organs that produce hormones to control and coordinate many of the body's functions like metabolism. The thyroid gland secretes hormones that control the body's metabolism and energy levels. Other endocrine functions include reproduction, growth and development, stress response, blood sugar control, and mood swings. Plastics can cause havoc on the endocrine system. 4. Immune system impact. Prolonged exposure may weaken the immune system, making the body more susceptible to infections and diseases. While research is still ongoing, the preliminary findings are concerning. Nanoplastics, due to their size, can cross barriers like the blood-brain barrier, leading to unknown long-term effects. The blood-brain barrier is a network of cells and blood vessels that protects the brain from harmful substances in the blood. Your blood-brain barrier is a protective layer that lines the inner surfaces of the blood vessels inside your brain. It's really more of a filter and behaves like a gatekeeper to your brain. Nanoplastics can cross blood-brain barrier and can cause inflammatory responses, disrupting brain cell function, and potentially contributing to neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's by interacting with proteins associated with the disease, particularly by impairing the breakdown of structures linked to Parkinson's. This is just one finding, and it is possible that micro and nanoplastics may cause serious harm on the human body. The broader environmental impact. The issue of micro and nanoplastics extends beyond human health. These particles harm marine life, disrupt ecosystems, and contribute to climate change by degrading into greenhouse gases over time. What can we do? The good news is, we can take steps to reduce micro and nanoplastics. 1. Reduce plastic use. Opt for reusable items like metal water bottles and cloth shopping bags. 2. Learn how to handle plastic products. Tearing a plastic bag can release between 0.46 and 250 microplastics per centimeter of torn plastic. You might be wondering, how does tearing a simple plastic bag cause such a problem? Well, the way the bag is torn plays a big role in how many microplastics are released. It turns out the method you use to tear the plastic matters. If you rip the bag by hand, you're likely to release fewer microplastics. But if you use scissors or another sharp tool, the cut can be much cleaner, leading to more microplastics being generated. The smoother the tear or cut, the more tiny plastic particles are released into the environment. We will discuss more about this later in the video. 3. Educate others, share this video, and spread awareness about the dangers of plastic pollution. Let's look into 3 fascinating facts about how microplastics are created in everyday life, including how something as simple as tearing a plastic bag can have a big impact. Plus, we'll discuss how to minimize them and why we should really think twice before reusing single-use plastics. Fact number 1. Did you know that tearing a plastic bag can release between 0.46 and 250 microplastics per centimeter of torn plastic? That's a huge range, right? And it all depends on how you tear it. When you tear a plastic bag, the friction and pressure from the tear break the plastic down into tiny particles. But how you open the bag really matters. If you rip it by hand, fewer microplastics are released. But if you use scissors or another sharp object, the cut is cleaner and releases more microplastics. Essentially, the cleaner the tear, the more likely it is to break into smaller, sharper pieces that end up floating in the air or being carried away by the wind. And these tiny particles can be inhaled or end up in the environment, where they are nearly impossible to remove. So, next time you open a plastic bag, you might want to think about the method you're using. Gentler might actually be better. Are you surprised by this? I certainly was. I always thought cutting a plastic bag was safer and more clean than tearing it apart with my hands. But as it turns out, science has a different story to tell. Let's talk about something as mundane as opening a bag of chips. Research shows that the method you use to open a plastic bag, whether tearing, cutting, or piercing, can significantly affect the amount of microplastics released. In a recent study, scientists measured how much microplastic debris is generated by these actions. Here's what they found. Cutting a bag with a knife produces the most microplastics, followed by scissoring, and finally, tearing with your hands releases the least. Who would have thought? Scientists at the University of Newcastle in Australia studied common plastic items like grocery bags, gloves, and bottles. They experimented with different methods of breaking these items apart and measured the microplastics released using an ultra-sensitive scale. Over 200 seconds of tearing, cutting, and scissoring, the team found that thousands of microplastic particles were generated. Learning about this fact made me realize that knowledge is power. Fact number 2, microplastics aren't just from tearing plastic bags, they're actually in your clothes. Yes, synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, and acrylic are shedding microplastics every time you wash them. Every time you wash your synthetic clothes, millions of tiny plastic fibers are released into the water. And guess what? These microplastics are too small to be filtered out by most water treatment plants, which means they end up in our oceans, rivers, and lakes. Fish, marine animals, and even the food chain are affected. A single load of laundry can release over 700,000 microplastic fibers into the environment. And with billions of loads of laundry happening globally, that's a massive amount of pollution. So, what can we do? Well, choosing natural fibers like cotton, linen, or wool is a good start. Or you can invest in a microfiber filter for your washing machine to catch some of those fibers before they get into the water. Fascinating fact 3. The hidden danger of single-use plastics. Now, fact number 3. Single-use plastics are not just harmful because they create waste. They also break down into microplastics when we reuse them. You may think that reusing a plastic item like a bottle or a straw is better than throwing it away right away. But here's the thing. Over time, single-use plastics degrade with repeated use. Each time you use them, tiny bits of plastic break off and become part of the pollution problem. Repeated exposure to heat, pressure, or friction speeds up this process. That's why we should avoid reusing single-use plastics altogether. Plastics like water bottles, straws, and coffee cups are designed for one-time use, and they can't handle the wear and tear of multiple uses without starting to break down. Instead, opt for durable materials like stainless steel, glass, or reusable silicone. These options last longer, won't break down into microplastics, and are way better for the environment. Here's something even more surprising. Microplastics have made their way into our bodies. These tiny particles are in our food, in our water, and even in the air we breathe. Studies have found microplastics in tap water, seafood, and even beer. You might be surprised to know that microplastics can be found in a variety of cosmetic products, including 1. Exfoliating scrubs. These often contain tiny plastic beads that can scrub away dead skin cells. 2. Toothpaste. Some toothpastes use plastic microbeads to help clean teeth. 3. Makeup. Products like foundation, lipstick, and mascara may contain microplastics to add texture or shine. 4. Shampoo and conditioner. These products can include microplastics to improve lather or texture. 5. Sunscreen. Some sunscreens use microplastics to help disperse the active ingredients. It's important to check the labels of your cosmetic products to identify and avoid those containing microplastics. Look for products labeled microplastic-free or free from synthetic beads. That means when we eat, drink, or breathe, we're unknowingly consuming microplastics. And while scientists are still studying the full effects on human health, we know that these particles can cause inflammation and other long-term health issues. So, the more we can do to reduce their presence, the better. How can we minimize microplastics in our daily lives? The first step is to reduce plastic consumption. We can swap out single-use plastics for more sustainable alternatives, like reusable bags, stainless steel containers, and eco-friendly packaging. Next, be mindful of your clothing choices. Opt for natural fibers and consider washing your synthetic clothes in a microfiber filter bag to catch the fibers before they end up in the water. And finally, remember that recycling plastics properly is crucial. Recycle all the plastics you use and make sure they're going to the right place. When in doubt, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Microplastics are a growing problem, and they're already impacting our ecosystems, wildlife, and even our health. The time to act is now. Every small change we make, from reducing plastic use to choosing sustainable alternatives, adds up. Together, we can start making a big difference. So, next time you grab a plastic bag, think about the tiny particles it could release into the environment. And remember, every action you take can help reduce the microplastic problem. Let's work together to minimize our impact and protect the planet. Small actions, when done collectively, can lead to significant change. Let's work together for a cleaner, healthier planet. Now let's indulge in a thought experiment. What if the reason intelligent species haven't visited Earth is because they've become so advanced, so intelligent, that they've created technologies and products that ultimately lead to their own destruction? Imagine a civilization that's evolved far beyond our own. They've conquered disease, mastered space travel, and developed technologies that allow them to control their environment. But here's the catch. As they get smarter and more advanced, they also create materials, products, and systems that, unknowingly, start to erode the very foundation of their society. Think about it. What happens when an intelligent species discovers a material so useful, so versatile, that they use it for everything? They start incorporating it into everyday life, building with it, using it for food packaging, medicine, transportation, until one day, they realize the material is slowly destroying them. This could be a material so small and widespread that it invades every aspect of their existence. Microplastics, for example, are the perfect candidate. As a society advances, they might create plastics and nanomaterials that seem like a miracle at first, but over time, they could infiltrate their food, air, and water. These tiny particles, too small to see, too numerous to track, could have catastrophic health effects. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, microplastics are already a problem here on Earth. And you're absolutely right. Microplastics are everywhere, floating in the air, filling our oceans, and even ending up in our food and water. We're already dealing with the consequences of creating materials we didn't fully understand. Some scientists argue that microplastics might not only be harming wildlife but also threatening human health. And yet, we're still using plastics for everything, from packaging to clothing to medical devices. We're repeating the mistakes of those hypothetical advanced civilizations, only we're not aware of the consequences yet. Could it be that the reason intelligent species haven't visited us is because they've already gone down this path and wiped themselves out? Maybe they didn't have the foresight to stop using a material that they thought was the future, and now they're just gone. Now I know this might sound like a fun, far-out joke about aliens and their fate, but here's the thing, it's not just a joke, it's a warning, because we're at a tipping point. The choices we make today will determine whether we go down the same path of self-destruction. We can still turn things around. These particles, as we know, are practically indestructible. They don't biodegrade easily. They can accumulate in the environment, and when consumed or inhaled by living organisms, they can cause long-term damage. In short, they could be the silent destroyer of an entire civilization. If you enjoyed this video and found it eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on how we can live greener and cleaner lives. Drop your thoughts or questions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay curious, and keep questioning. Until next time, let's continue exploring the wonders of science and technology together at Club Academia.